Okay, so we're going to pick up here where we left off on Friday on how factors shape worldviews. And there's so many things that go on, whether it be religion, a community's ideology, their ethics, their political views, economics. Uh, Economics plays a huge role, right? So the almighty dollar is so powerful, and doesn't matter what country you're in. But then we get to the individual interests, right? So what are the interests that a particular individual has, and how powerful are them, right? So your views might change the way you look at something or someone, and cause you to do something that others would not. And so there is definitely individual interests involved in many decision making processes, environmentally as well as otherwise. Ethics. I don't have to talk to you guys about what's good and what's bad, right? So basically, what's right, what's wrong. Now, a relativist basically is someone who decides what's right and wrong as it changes with context to social issues. And so they can change what they believe is right or wrong with the way that society goes. Universalists, basically, no matter what, it's pretty much black and white. It's right and wrong is going to remain the same, and it doesn't matter culture, religion. It is what it is. Now, all of us have standards, ethical standards, what we stand for, and more importantly, sometimes what we won't stand for. And we talk about, you know, basic standards. You guys have a set of standards that are Midwest, that I would say fit the golden rule. Do unto others as others would do unto you, you know. And if you think about where we're at, we have conservative Midwest ethics that basically stand out, and that makes you what you are. I think that it's easy if I ask you a question, what you believe right or wrong. Almost every one of you are gonna be on the same note. Utility. What is good for the most people, right? So how does this all play together? It can make or break decisions. It can change the way people view things if your ethics are different, right? And so if we look at environmental ethics, basically it's the application of this ethics when it comes to the environment and what's right and wrong. So there's degrees, and it's very difficult to pinpoint where you stand sometimes, because some things often change with relation to the situation. So, for example, if we look at the alligator snapping turtle, the ASTs, we were able to put together $100,000, so we're able to preserve them. What happens if you don't have that money? Well, you want to do that, but you can't, right? You don't have the ability, and so it's kind of like playing God. If you look at kind of an extreme situation, right? The spotted owl, right? Logging provides industry. Logging provides jobs. Is it okay to destroy a forest and cut down a forest to keep jobs for the people? Well, there's groups that think that. Or should we conserve it no matter what? Well, how do we utilize resources? What happens when it comes time that you need those resources? We are currently driving other species to extinctions. Should we? What about pollution? Is it okay for people to throw garbage out? Is it okay to burn tires? Some people don't have a qualm about this. If we look at how we look at things, and you know, start with yourself. As we kind of expand through the ages, it went from an individual to a family to a tribe. Eventually we get to a race of individuals who are in a nation or even globally that now have an understanding and a deep concern about everything. And so it just expands from there. And I think the thing that stands out is as we've kind of moved on from what are rights, what's the rights, going from the Magna Carta to the Emancipation Proclamation, we're going to where people have inalienable rights. And as we move forward, then we look at labor standards and civil rights. But then in 73, this is the first time we're talking about endangered species and other organisms other than ourselves. So it took a lot of time to get to that point, but we have really, in the 70s, it really came alive, So, so if we look at our concerns that we have, right? So what do we need to worry about? Well, do we worry about economic prosperity? Or do we worry about organisms? Or do we worry about both? If you think of non-Western cultures, in other words, not United States, they have so many areas to this ethics that go into it. But if we look at ours, you can go a couple of different ways. Anthropocentrism, right? So if you look at this, basically all it's saying is that people are the only ones that matter. We're the only ones that have rights. Biocentrism, well, yeah, but there's a couple things with people. And then you have ecocentrism, which for me is where it's at, right? The whole system has value. The whole system has worth. And so as that happens, everything plays into the big picture of we're all connected. And so it's very easy to see anthropocentric or anthropocentric, right? Only concerned about humans. Bio, we'll take the slime mold and the central stone roller or whatever. Ecocentric, it's everything. Everything goes into the big picture. So if we look at where this all came from, right? It's had to start somewhere. And if you look at Christianity's attitude, right? We have the anthropocentric, but we do have stewardship. And if you follow like songs in the Bible or in the hymnals, or if you look at the Bible, it talks about nature, it talks about the environment all the time. And so Christianity starts out by saying, hey, we're all God's creatures, and if you're destroying nature, you're breaking covenant with God. Then we start to see the Industrial Revolution take place. So we're wanting to build economy, make things happen. And then we get transcendentalism, right? So Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau. This is where nature is so important. It's for the divine, and we start to see nature really recognized for what it is. We need to protect it no matter what. John Muir, right? Definitely an ecocentric point of view. This is him with Teddy Roosevelt. Think about the fact that we need to have nature unspoiled at all times. This is what we call the preservation ethic. Conservation ethic, Gifford Pinchot basically wanted to use all of our resources for humans in the greatest good. So this is what we call the conservation ethic. But again, don't make a mistake when you think about this. Gifford really was thinking it from a human standpoint of how do we get the most out of what we have. Aldo Leopold definitely was concerned about the land protecting ecological systems, and basically came out and says, "Hey, we are all one with the land, and we don't actually own it. We're not a conqueror. We're citizens of that land." And so, land ethic basically allowed us to look at it in a different manner, and think about how all ecosystems, how all systems are connected. Deep ecology basically is that we are not able to separate ourselves from nature in any way, and nature's unable to separate from us. So everything should be protected because it has value. Ecofeminism, we're seeing more women come into the environmental movement, and again, basically, we are looking at the world through the female's eyes and working together. Environmental justice basically is us treating environmental issues with worth. We want to solve these problems, and what we find is wealthy nations a lot of times will end up pushing their problems onto third world countries or poorer nations because they have all the money, and so they can pay to do so. So hazardous waste going across the border, being dumped on citizens that don't have the ability to mitigate those problems because of money. We think about how minority areas are also impacted. So the more poor you are, the more people get away with destroying the environment where you're at. And if you think about the fact that 75% of toxic waste landfills in the southeastern United States are in high racial communities. Native Americans have always been put in a bad place. I'm a 16th Apache Indian. I understand what people go through in tribes because I've been to reservations. 40s to the 60s, nobody was told about issues that would cause you problems. So the Navajo were mining radioactive material, right? Nobody told them about it. And basically, a large number of them ended up dying. And so, basically, we had to find a way to protect people and the environment. Clearly, everybody knows what economics is. Goods and services, trade-offs. And so what we do is we do economic studies to determine, where we're at when it comes to resources. If you think about the fact that we can use the almighty dollar to change people's views in a positive way. So in other words, if you think about economically, if you want to change the world for the better, make it to where it's economically feasible. So for example, we see people changing over to electric vehicles. Why? The cost of gasoline is less. They don't have to charge or fill their car full of gas, and right? So it makes sense. If you think about this too, ecology and economics, okios is basically the root word to both of those, and all of them play a role together. So it's the way to make a difference if you think about the economics of positive change. economies, definitely, we look at the goods and services that go into an economy. Um, People who get their needs met just by communing with nature, a subsistence economy. Capitalist market, we're a capitalist market economy, right? Buy and sell, it drives the price. Centrally planned, basically the government is who's determining what's good and what's not, how much it costs, how much they can allocate. And then what we have is a mixed economy. So the government intervenes, but not directly, right? So definitely a situation where government and people working together to make a difference here. So if we look at what happens in the market economy, right? If the government gets in and starts messing with it, basically we can find a way to unlimit or eliminate a disadvantage or an advantage to somebody else. We can make social services take place. We can provide safety nets so communities don't break down, right? So we don't have any loss in revenue. Manage the commons, so all of the materials and the resources out there, we can manage them so somebody doesn't get too much, and we can get rid of pollution, and so or eliminate a lot of pollution. So it's this giant circle, right? If we look at the conventional economy, sometimes we have situations that ignore the environment and causes more problems, and the environmental then it's in a cycle. It goes through this spiral, if you will. But if we look at the environmental view of economics, we're always rebuilding on it. And I talked about using money to cause good things to happen. But if we think about the humans needing and coexisting with the environment, now our natural resources become a vital source, but also managed properly. So environmental view of economics is a really good thing. I'm going to stop here, and we'll pick up here on Tuesday. But I appreciate you guys listening, and the rest of the time, I want you to enjoy your day.